Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people, he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn they're spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of men on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Welcome back to the Logbook Podcast. I'm Kim.
I'm Dakota.
And I'm Kim.
So, Kim number 1 and Kim number 2.
Making a heavy meat Dakota sandwich right now.
So just to let you guys know, just our service connection at this point, I was Navy.
I'm Navy as well.
And,
Army.
Yeah. And that's how we run it. We have several different guests and co-hosts come on with us, and we get their opinions on what is going on in our veteran community, especially right now with the budget coming up. We're going to review and continue to review what's going on in the Department of Veteran Affairs House Committee. And guys, it is serious, the amount of fraud that is going on with the Department of Veteran Affairs. And this is your money. You know, it came out with the OIG that 50% of service-connected veterans do not use the VA whatsoever. There's only 680,000 100% service-connected disabled veterans. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Kev. What's going on, buddy?
It's good to see you. We have just an amazing amount of fraud going on. So far in the committee, was it Van Duren or
Vanderhoff? Van Duren. I'm having trouble
remembering their names. So there's $500 million that is not been found within the Department of Veteran Affairs right now, and no one's taking accountability. It's funny. It's that we'll have this guy, one of the guys on the panel says, "Oh, that's my position. That's my job. That's my responsibility," and immediately he'll turn around and say, "Hey, no, it's not." Of course it is. Let's go ahead and blame it on COVID-19, which they handled beautifully.
Let's go ahead and blame it on their management system, their computers, because they just have minds of their own.
Right. It
Are
is
they already bound with artificial intelligence?
well, that's what I'm worried about.
The VA
Is
is entirely artificial, but intelligent, no.
no.
Ooh,
I
I
do. I will
concur.
say this: they did incorporate virtual reality in their training simulators. That's obviously not working well.
Or if an employee makes a mistake, let's send them back for retraining.
Exactly.
Instead of can them.
So I think we discovered last night was very good, and we did have some good people stand up. Even one actually hold the VA accountable for the increase of mental health because of the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Yes.
I will say this, that I was absolutely disappointed in both parties, is that no one ever considered the mental health of veterans from a failed campaign, we'll call it as it is, or a failed proxy war, which was Afghanistan. Afghanistan never set a goal, not one. We're not winning wars. We're not setting goals for our military people. Our military needs closure. We need win. We need the win. We need the victories. And that's not happening.
Even a loss would have been better than this, just pulling out.
I also believe we need our long-term PTSD treatment back.
Yeah, I did sit there and did watch the House Service Committee talk about how where was the end game, and they actually revealed the numbers was from Miley, is the reason the Afghanistan pullout was so important is because we could not fight on two fronts, so we could not handle Afghanistan and then Ukraine. So we go where the money laundering is, because obviously it's come about with the Hunter Biden scandal. That's Ukraine is just money laundering. That's what it is. You're sitting there using our soldiers, using our military just for money. It's ridiculous. And the American people know it. They can't be that, they're not that stupid.
Or naive.
No.
They got obtuse is a good word.
Yeah. So if you'll have any questions, feel free to comment. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome, Lorna. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you spending your Memorial Day weekend with us. We did go to the Veterans Cemetery this morning and did pay our respects. Problem is, when you have a 2-year-old and you put the flag in, she's going to want to pull it out. But it is important to train them young. Absolutely. We will continue to do that, and we will continue even tomorrow.
Which means y'all put one of them flags on my dad's stone. Because he's up there on the hill.
You know, we were over by that area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad. I hope we did.
Yes, his name is James Dostalik.
That's good.
He's
I'm glad.
up on the hill in C-section.
The Department of Veteran Affairs is a money laundering agency. We very much know
that, Kevin. Oh my goodness. And the amount of proof that's out there is overwhelming.
I know, and they act like, the thing is they know it's there. Even these committees are held accountable to it, but nothing ever happens, and they know they're going to be grilled. They're going to be embarrassed by the American people. And here's the thing is they know if they get fired, they're going to go work for the company that got those kickbacks. They know that. So, and then on top of that, if they're past the retiring age, they're going to retire and then go work for those companies, because didn't the last head of the VA go and work for
last head of Michael E. DeBakey VA, he went to work for a company called Geld, where he was a director just like he was with Veterans Affairs. And they're a company that supplies healthcare services to all over the country and other parts of the world as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's kickbacks. We saw it. We had an episode where y'all can go back and watch it, where we talked about fraud. There was a doctor in a Government Accountability Office report that was in Dubai, a VA doctor in Dubai, getting kickbacks with Johnson & Johnson. Amazing.
I showed y'all where those doctors right there in Tomball As close as Tomball and Spring were getting kickbacks and had to pay back like $2.68 million.
Wow, listen what Lorna says. Yes, Kim, number 2. We do need PTSD treatment. I have PTSD for 45 years. When I turned 65, the VA cut me loose because of the risk of meds, because greater than the benefit. And if you aren't on meds, you don't get treatment, period. So I'm on my own. I will say this is that within the veteran community, the female community is a high at-risk community. They actually have a higher rate of suicide. And even the VA is delayed on admitting to, for males and females, military sexual trauma. However, the reports have come out, even when I was in 10 years ago, that it was still a great issue. And the numbers during after the Vietnam War for military sexual assault was very high. But I'm wondering why in World War II, military sexual trauma really wasn't there. I'm wondering why about that.
Hey,
But
Kev.
they took our long-term PTSD treatment for 6-week and 12-week ACT and CPT courses and 16 weeks of 90-minute rapid eye movement rather than leaving us with long-term PTSD treatment for our skeletons in our closets.
Yeah, I will say this. Dean Cerny, he actually said, I don't take meds at all. I refuse them. I was a drug addict twice. And in 2017, the VA actually contributed to the opioid crisis because they would never fix you. They would just sit there and hook you up on these meds. I know personally, because it took 2 years to get an appointment. And so they just give you a Band-Aid. I remember getting 90 narcos at once. And then it took my parents' involvement to get me off those meds. And then they don't check what meds cross and work together. And you have a lot of veterans and even active duty getting serotonin syndrome because they're being poisoned from their medications. And many end up dying. And we have a Gold Star mom, Miss Margie Taylor. That's what exactly happened to her son. And he was active duty.
Hey, Kevin, if you want to share links with us, if you could send them through Messenger, I would appreciate it. That way we can actually look at them.
Yeah,
we can't click on them from here.
Apparently, we are medicated for the VA's protection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one. If we're medicated and we're under our days, can we actually think for ourselves? Can we actually, what would I would say, actually defend ourselves? Could anyone believe us because we're highly medicated? That has been used against us. I've actually seen it in a military hearing where they took a sailor and they said, well, you were under this many psych meds, and these could also be hallucinogenics when you mix these two. So everything you say will not count against you. Well, vice versa is true, is you put them on the meds. So kind of your responsibility, Department of the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, if they put you on the meds and then they can get an accountant in there to run your money because they say you're not competent to run your own money, then they can make you have to provide receipts or whatever for everything that's spent, and they can keep the change.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, we actually do have our messenger up right now. If you want to go ahead and send that, and we'll put it up if you wanted to send that article from the Palm Beach Post. I'd appreciate it. We'll put it up with all your information that you'd like to share. Dean Cerny said, here, when I broke my back, they gave me Percocet 10s and told me to go back to work the flight deck. How true.
This is with aviation. You always got to get back to the flight deck. Get back to the flight line.
I'll be honest with you. I worked on helicopters high as a kite. Because you were demonized if you did not do your job. But however, I could see that we were so low in our staffing inside the military. There was no choice, but however, there was always this guilt or pressure behind me that I was like, okay, I really have to be careful. So I started double checking, triple checking myself, and it created a state of confusion because of those medications. And it affects me today because it kind of retrained my mind where I'm not so sure where I was than before I got into the Navy.
Yeah,
So
you get out there and then you're doing the Thorazine Melorel Zoloft shuffle.
yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and continue the bullshit of the House Committee of Veteran Affairs tonight. Again, thank you for joining us. We like to thank Common Denominator Network. We will be having Miss Sally join us later. She is a civilian, and it's really important that we get the civilian side of things too. So that's why we have a mixed panel. If you guys would like to join our panels, please let us know, send us a message, and let's get your thoughts out here. We want to get the American people to wake up and recognize what the hell is going on within our Veteran Affairs fraud administration. So, Dean, so are we getting paid or what? Well, the budget's not done. And what they did in the House committee hearing is the VA put out a memo that was completely untrue. And we saw in the House committee, you can go back and watch it yesterday, that they refused to take it down. So, however, it looks like we are going to get paid. It's there, it's set. It was all a lie just to sit there and fear mongle and put us veterans that is already in that risk community more at risk. Remember, when you can sit there and put fear in somebody, that means you can control them. And that's exactly what the VA does.
I say if the VA can provide an accountant to us when they think that we are out of our minds and can't do our own accounting, then we should be able to apply a third-party CPA entity to the VA.
See, here's my problem a little bit with third parties too. You know, you've got a good friend of mine. Well, Kevin, you're here, so it's the LLCs. You know what it is? You know, the government gives them money, and they get a kickback from that.
Yeah, so but I mean, if they can attach an accountant to us and say, "Oh, well, you've got to tell me every single penny you want to spend, every single thing on, and we get to keep the change," then we need to have an outside entity that they need to report to, and then we can find the missing money.
Here's the thing. I think we just need to, in my personal opinion, I think we need more freedom. I think the head of the VA should be an elected official.
By veterans only.
Exactly.
Has to be veterans only, no civilian interference, because we're the ones that have to deal with them.
Yep. That's I really I think that would I'm for more freedom. I'm for more transparency.
You know what's really interesting, what I learned today, did you know that the Secretary of Veterans Affairs was never a cabinet member until 1989? And I did not know that because my high school history book was dated in the 70s. Yeah. Or my high school government book, I should say. It was from the 70s.
Okay, I give Dakota my nomination as accountant for the VA.
If they want to know where my money goes, let them. I pay my bills, buy trains, and beer. Well, I can guarantee you the majority of our VA pay goes to beer and cigarettes.
And whiskey.
I left that out. That is a fine military.
Well, that goes without saying, yeah. I think so.
If you weren't drinking or smoking before you got in there, you will be by the time you get out.
Yeah, but I guarantee you everyone quit Bud Light after that.
Should have never started Bud White or wine. Go, Lorna.
Girl, we need to have a drink soon.
Jim Jack, Sweet Gypsy Rose. I sit in the back corner with my friends, Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, and Sweet Gypsy Rose.
All right, well, we're ready to dive into this today.
Let's get going. Let's look at this. Speaking of which, did you get your whiskey?
I will.
Mr. Missile, one of the recommendations your office made to the Undersecretary for Health is to establish guidance to support the amounts identified in the manual journal vouchers. Is the issue with the guidance and the standards for these manual journal vouchers limited to expenditure of the supplemental funds?
They would be with respect to
Oh.
this report, but we have seen the lack of guidance in many other situations.
Is there any reason to consider the age of the financial management system and why the VHA would not already have guidance and standards in place before the pandemic for these vouchers?
So given the limitations of the financial management system, you would hope that there would be guidance, clear policies and procedures, clear understandings of roles and responsibilities, just because of the financial management system has.
Okay. And if you could, from my own knowledge, redefine limitations for me.
Some of the transactions were not able to be put through the system. They had to be done manually. Anytime you have manual transactions, you have a greater risk that they're not going to be done correctly and that you open it up to potential fraud.
Okay.
Wow.
Who is the accountable official responsible for issuing this guidance at the VA and the VHA specifically?
It's my responsibility to communicate the guidance from John's office to the VHA.
Okay. Is this issue enhanced by the fact that VAMCs are well known to operate as unique entities?
I would say that that is definitely part of the challenge, but in this particular case, I think it was that the VAMCs were responding to the pandemic. And since our primary focus was keeping veterans and our staff members safe, we were sometimes operating under less than ideal staffing circumstances.
Has your office provided any recommendations for addressing lack of guidance and standardization being decimated from VA headquarters to the medical centers?
They killed a homeless guy here for it.
Our process of
No big deal.
improving our policies consistent with the recommendations that the IG made in the report. For my office, that is the responsibility of standardizing the guidance. And then we are working collectively with the Office of Integrity and Compliance within VHA that is responsible for going out into the field and ensuring that roles and responsibilities are followed appropriately. And I don't know if Mr. McDivitt.
That was
Integrity
certainly
and
one of the lessons
compliance
learned
at the
from the
VA.
pandemic for us Congressmen, working with Ms. Duke's office. My CFO is working with medical centers, CFOs to standardize
that'll get you,
processes. We
guys.
endeavored to do that.
Them.
I can say the
That's
things that we
AI,
did as an
obviously.
integrated
The AI
system
department.
throughout the pandemic were much easier to track and account for than the things where we did journal vouchers and things of that nature, although we endeavored to manually keep track of that as well. So we have changed processes.
Mr. Missel, your report recommends that the VHA staff segregate duties, make certain that a purchase card holder is not the requester and approver, and ensure that contracting officers, representatives, or cores know and understand their duties and responsibilities for these certifications and payments of invoices. These recommendations seem to me to be something that VA should have already been doing. This is pretty basic stuff. Are you surprised that your office is having to make these recommendations to VA?
We agree that these are basic responsibilities or sort of fundamental to good internal controls, and those recommendations remain open.
I'm assuming that supplemental funds and the pandemic are not just highlighted issues that have been at VA for years. Why is there not a process in place to train and educate contracting and purchasing staff on these basic roles?
There is, and you're right, those are basic functions, and we have to test it and provide remedial training, sometimes disciplinary action.
Before training,
You're
oh,
100%
wow.
correct. Yep, it's variability across the system that we
We should
continually
have
try
a drinking
to
game every time they say training.
But I would say during the pandemic,
Can I call
the increased
bullshit?
reliance on journal vouchers, because when we receive supplemental
journal
funding,
vouchers.
what is automated is no longer able to be taken advantage of. So we were it was highlighting a challenge that we were already aware of and making it more more urgent.
And keep in mind, during the pandemic, we have acquisition people working, 24 hours a day trying to acquire supplies and equipment. We had financial management staff that were repurposed to take temperature at the front door of AMC. So it was a very different situation.
With that, I
Oh,
yield back, Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Representative Mace, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank ranking member as well. And I want to thank General Burke.
Okay, since they're completely stuck on how they've have a 55% efficiency within journal vouchers, I'm going to give you what a journal voucher is. A journal voucher is a document on which is stored the essential information about an accounting transaction. The voucher contains a unique identifying number, the transaction date, transaction description, and transaction amount. So it's been 55% more effective. So what
I
happened?
think it needs to be at least 90% effective
Okay.
for me to be impressed.
I'm putting my money on is they got the date right.
No, that doesn't happen either. And I can
No.
promise you that.
Okay.
Because
So-
I have a purchasing agent in prosthetics who my neurologist sent over an order for me to get new tabs for my Cephalay, which is my migraine machine. And in turn, she buys me a whole brand new machine. Then she turns right around 6 weeks later and buys me another machine with the wrong tabs. So now I have two machines, both with the wrong tabs, and I had to give them the phone number in order to order the right tabs. And the only thing that was on my doctor's order was 3 packs of tabs, which would be 3, 6, 9, 9 tabs for 3 months. And they spent $700 and $700 on the machine, and both of them had the wrong tabs. And this was less than 6 months ago. And I'm sorry, my prosthetics purchasing agent, I swear, she's got something in her water bottle that isn't water.
We experienced that on the Texas House floor with Phelan.
Yeah, there's.
That's okay.
Her name is Miss Church, though.
That's perfect.
Oh,
That's freaking perfect.
irony. Oh my goodness.
Just for the entertainment value alone, I'm okay with it.
Her name's Miss Church. Okay. What she has in that water bottle is the blood of Christ.
Miss,
Holy water.
I asked her, I said, Miss Church, do you
In
realize
spirit.
you ordered me the wrong tabs? She goes, oops, my bad. But
She's
they're
not
on
drunk.
back order.
She's
But
not
they're
drunk.
at my
She's
house.
She's
all-
super spiritual.
She's spiritual.
But they're at my house. I
Speaking
said,
of
what,
which,
do
need a
my,
little bit
do
of
my
Holy Spirit
Cephalay
myself.
tabs come from China too?
Well, everyone, we'd like to introduce Mama Sally's back to join us today. Hi, Sally. How are you doing?
Good. How are y'all?
Really good.
Doing well.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you just did a drop and joining us this evening because you could be home on this lovely weekend with your family, and I appreciate your time coming on tonight. Lorna Coonfield just said she'd like us to remember Joe Perry, who is no longer with us. Fair winds and following seas. Well, we also have a family member, Buddy Coonfield, who is no longer with us. Like to say again, fair winds and following seas. We will continue the watch. So, did y'all have anything else to say on Mr. Mervan here?
Yeah.
Mr. Van?
Mr. Van.
I'm beginning to think he's 3 French fries shy of a Happy Meal.
Well, no, I think he's very stern. I just think he has no emotion. And I think that's kind of needed in this. I think he's holding the beast at bay.
Yeah.
That's what I get from Mr. Van.
If he gets to hold it at bay, then more power to him. Because
Here's the thing. In watching other House committees, I have not really had much liking for Mr. Van.
No.
I think he's a typical bureaucrat.
Mhm.
Typical bureaucrat. None of these people have ever walked the halls of the VA, I would say, except Morgan Luttrell. God, I want to be a fly on the wall. He actually dresses up like a homeless beggar when he goes in.
Yes, he
It's
does.
hilarious.
Really?
Oh yeah, he does.
And he doesn't let him know he's coming either. He
Yeah.
just walks in like, booyah, here I am. How you like me now?
Yeah, I wish he would actually give us a whiteboard Wednesday on the that experience.
I wish he would video record those interactions. Hey, Morgan, if you need any kind of video work done, I've proven myself time and time again
I think
at all of your town halls. So
I think he should go in with a body cam. That would be
Oh,
As
yeah.
Morgan said, how many hours of video do you have?
I got about 7
Dakota?
hours of Morgan. 7.
Hey,
Well,
Morgan
yeah,
always does a fabulous hometown.
but guys, we will be seeing Mr. Luttrell, our congressman, tomorrow at Flag Circle for Memorial Day. Depends on how the situation is. I don't want to sit there and exploit any of the families there because we will have a lot of Gold Star mothers. But if it's appropriate, we might get a video because honestly, y'all need to see these Gold Star mothers. They're fantastic, fantastic.
Yes,
people.
they are.
I would love to share them with you and their message. So I probably will record. Lovely people. I totally love them. I'm probably going to be like bawling my eyes out. Just, they're amazing. I can't go on how amazing a Gold Star. Guys, reach out to your Gold Stars. Definitely, your life will be much better for it. So let's get going.
You want to throw it up?
Okay, here we go. I keep forgetting to do that.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Ranking Member as well. And I want to thank General Bergman for letting me slide in here to ask a few questions before I have to leave today. I wanted to take a moment also and thank the VA Appropriations Committee for writing
For what?
their bill, which fully funds the Department of Veterans Affairs, despite the continued comments from the administration and from the left that Republicans don't want to fund or want to cut funding from veterans. Nothing could be further from the truth. And some of you up here today have participated in a bed of lies, bullshit and lies regarding, quite frankly, it's extremely disrespectful to our veterans to posit or even to accuse us of wanting to cut VA benefits.
Okay,
None
I
of us
changed
up
my
here
mind.
on the
I
left
like
or the right,
her.
Democrats or Republicans,
Spicy. What's your name?
want to
Oh,
do that. We are concerned about the
Wow.
lack of accountability, waste, fraud, and abuse within the VA. I am also
We need to make a
concerned
meme for that.
with that enormously. And looking at the COVID supplemental funding, as we've been discussing today, the fraud and abuse, and that is appalling. The VA received roughly $40 billion in extra funding between 2020 and 2021. When the OIG audited 14.5 billion of the money, the OIG found the record keeping was usually incomplete. It was not signed. There were a lack of descriptions of purpose, no documentation, in some cases, none at all existed. So I have a few questions this morning. Mr. Missel, my first one is for you. Did your report say the VA struggled to account for CARES funds, failing to maintain audit trails for majority of internal transfers, failed to adhere to internal controls, and 10,000 plus supply purchases or service contracts worth over 187 million, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Roshowski, would you consider not being able to account for $187 million fraud, waste, and abuse?
I would not.
I'm sorry. So if I gave you $187 million and you didn't know what to do with it, you wouldn't call that waste?
No, unless it's proven as fraud, waste, and abuse, it could just be the fact you didn't have a receipt, but when you look farther, which we have, and we find the receipt.
So you, okay. So in Mr. Missel's report,
Wow.
that they couldn't find, they didn't have information on $187 million. So if you just spend that money and you don't have the receipts, you would not call it waste. I don't know how you have your job, quite
That's
frankly.
the
if that's
biggest
your position.
bullshitter I've ever seen.
Based on that example, do you think that the VA has any issues with waste, fraud, and abuse?
We absolutely
Yes.
do. Yes, we do.
And where would that be?
Absolutely.
It's across the system, and we work very diligently to root it out.
But
But
just-
there's a difference between fraud, waste, and abuse and not having a receipt or an accounting anomaly or a journal voucher. There's big
That's
difference
one
between
hell
those.
of a receipt
Yeah, I would
loss.
say if you spent $187 million,
you can
you know
still have a
that was
receipt
definitely
for
waste, fraud, and
exotic
abuse, and
ones.
so would the American taxpayer, and so would our veterans. Do you think $187 million could have helped veterans if you knew what it was actually spent on?
I know it was spent on veterans, so I think it did help them.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
With
Spent
your
on paint
position on that.
jobs.
This hearing's findings reveal a troubling lack of oversight. I've heard my colleagues on our side of the aisle talk about that lack of internal controls within the VA and inability to adequately document transfers of funds. You say you have the receipts, but Mr. Missel's report says otherwise. Lack of adherence to fiscal controls are clear indicators of a system that's in disarray. These shortcomings can't be ignored as they've been a result of the inability for the VA to account for significant sums of money. We have many veterans on our committee today, and I concur and agree with the frustration that they have. Almost every one of my family members has either been through the VA or will be in their future, because almost all of them have served, and they deserve so much better than what they're getting today, particularly with the chip that you have on your shoulder and your testimony before this committee. Maybe leave it at the door next time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and any extra time I have, I will yield to General Bergman. Thank you.
Miss Mace,
Hell
Miss Mace.
yeah.
Dakota, you found another spicy one.
I like that lady. She's feisty.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh. No, I just sat there.
She's eloquent. She speaks, gets straight to the point, and unlike her name, she's easy on the eyes. So, just-
Dude, I would say she's a very great tactician there. Ooh, she
I
came in
can-
with
I
that
can-
mess.
I can vouch for the fact that I've got approximately $21,000 worth of useless prosthetic material that they did not fulfill the order correctly.
And you can't return it.
And I can't return it.
No refunds.
No refunds. I even took them to bed stuff and showed it to them and like, put this back in your generic closet, dude. I don't do generic products. I do name brand. And they're like, well, we can't take that back. But here, let's stuff all this other stuff in there too. I had a surgical bag 7 times in the last 6 months coming out of prosthetics. A surgical bag full of stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is what you request from Veterans Affairs, the actual thing that's needed, they never
You
bring
don't
it
get.
anyway. No.
Because my doctor writes PTO Breg knee braces with Breg undersleeves, lace up ankle braces, and wrist braces with metal inside. And
Yes.
that's the way she writes the order. Well, PTO Breg, they have to order it from California. It has to go to Florida, and then it comes to me. Why it has to go across the country before it gets to me, I'll never know, but it does. And they're about $1,300 a piece the way they're designed. And they want to go get me for an undersleeve. They want to go get me a brace out of the closet, and you cannot put a brace on top of a brace.
We'd like to give a shout out to our good friends at HTX Renegade Radio right now. Love you guys.
Thanks for joining in.
Love you.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Guys,
I
go
got a
check them out.
question. How many people are we limited to on the shout out memorial veterans?
If there's anyone that has a service member that has passed due to killed in action or from the malpractice of the VA, because that's actually killed in action too, or suicides, please share their names. I would definitely.
Okay, I've got a list.
Good. Go for it. Say the names.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to remember my father, Thomas McCarter, Air Force.
What?
His brother, my uncle, Ernest McCarter, U.S. Army, retired.
What?
Jay Curley, U.S. Marines. Let's see, Leroy Allen, U.S. Army, 2 tours in Vietnam. John Pugh, U.S. Marines, also 3 tours in Vietnam. Let's see, Kurt Kraft, U.S. Air Force. Phil Green, U.S. Army. Tony Gritting, U.S. Army. Oh my gosh, my Uncle Joy, 1 tour of Vietnam, U.S. Army.
Wow.
My uncle, Thomas Beasley, U.S. Navy.
Okay, cool. Hoo-yah.
There's one in there.
I warned you, I got a list.
Fair winds and following seas from us Navy. And again, we'll have the watch. I would like to bring up someone very personal, near and dear to my heart, who passed away in his 20s. Kyle Gothier, and then Chris McCracken, hometown hero where I grew up in, killed in Afghanistan. Miss you, bro.
William Bryan Waters Sr. killed by medical World War II in Korea. James Dustolik, Vietnam Army, and my grandfather was Navy.
And I also have Joseph Carroll killed on the beaches of Normandy. He was my mom's first boyfriend. He never made it home to marry her.
My father was stabbed in Vietnam and ended up with hepatitis C from the stabbing, and Michael E. DeBakey killed him in 2005.
Yeah, Agent Orange got John, Jay, and Leroy. Yeah, he didn't do a whole lot for him.
They wouldn't let my dad go to MD Anderson. They told him that it wasn't cancerous.
We also have Stan Herring and Clarence Herring, both U.S. Army. Both fought 3 tours in Vietnam. One died from kidney failure. The other one died from cancer. Agent Orange.
That Agent Orange was a mean dog.
Yes, it was.
As well as Agent Rainbow. It's just the purple, blue, orange, and green didn't last. The purple, blue, pink, and like that didn't last as long as the orange did. The orange stayed to where it could be seen from the sky.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, all the people I've mentioned have had a very positive impact on my life.
Yes, they have.
Very strong, courageous men.
Mine were too.
And they are deeply missed.
They didn't take nothing from no one, and they didn't try to give nothing to no one. But you wouldn't get more than one bark, and they were on it like all get out.
Like stink on shit.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we lost Dakota and Kimberly.
I think we did. I don't know what happened there. I hope they're all right.
I hope they are too. So yeah, there's a lot of people out traveling today to memorials and services. I really would like to say, people, be careful out there. Your memorial is not one that needs to be added to this day. Be careful out there on the roads. Pay attention to what you're doing. Phones down. Pay a lot of attention to what you're doing.
Watch out for those village idiots.
Whoa,
yep.
We had
there they are.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
Oh, hi, Ruth. How are you doing? It's good to see you. Hoo-yah. Your husband was also Navy.
She took a shot while she was gone.
Awesome. Thank you guys for taking over. So you want to get back into this House Committee of Veteran Affairs.
Let her roll.
Let's go. All right.
Better put your boots on because the shit's getting deep.
Thank you, and I yield back.
General Burton, you recognize.
Ooh, buzz back.
For 5 minutes.
Thank you for the lady for yielding, because then I'll consume as much time as the chairman will allow. Bad news doesn't get better with time. That's a fact. So let's start with a little trivia question here. Anybody here in this room know who the Army Corps of Engineers reports to? No one.
Mayor Turner.
No one.
So when you think about, why would I start
They don't have a
with
boss.
Veterans Affairs Committee hearing with that statement? When you are an entity that may be good folks working hard in that entity who is not accountable to any entity or person above you, you have a natural tendency to make life about you and your priorities.
Oh, no shit.
I chose to speak last here today, if you will. You know, the chairman accepted here for closing remarks. But having had the gavel on the oversight subcommittee during the 115th Congress, I've heard a different level of BS today that was more convincing than I've heard in a long time from some of you. Now, I would just, don't you think, according to one of the questions where who responded, Mr. Richowski, as far as the veterans reaching out about, you know, they were reaching out to you all about the cuts. Don't you think maybe we'd have cut down or maybe eliminated that outreach if we hadn't lied to them on the front end about the 22% cuts in the Limit Save Grow Act, which we know is not true, never has been, never will be. You've got a lot of members of this committee, both sides of the aisle, who've put their country first before anything else. That's not a core competency of any bureaucracy, any bureaucracy. We need not only accountability, we need you to just flat out be truthful with us. Okay?
Never
That's all
gonna
we're asking
happen.
for. Because while you may not report to us, in the end, we all report to the veterans. Us as elected members of Congress.
Yeah, but we're not able to sue
You
for this
as people
bullshit.
work within a system that has the arguably second largest bureaucracy in
Second
the
largest
federal
bureaucracy.
government, second only to DOD. And guess what, where those veterans come from? They come from
DOD.
being fed a line of baloney, sometimes within the DOD during their service. So they get a little tired of being, I'm not going to say lied to, but just being
Oh, go ahead, go for it.
sideways. for
fine.
the
Given the
wrong reason.
Sideways,
runaround.
gaslit.
You know, let me ask you a question, Mr. Missile. I'd rather ask questions than talk, but I felt compelled to speak after hearing this. Could you, going back to who reports to who, could you repeat your statement regarding who doesn't report to who within the VA? Did I get right that you made a couple of comments about lack of reporting?
Yes, I did. So within the VA financial management structure, Mr. Richalski is the CFO of VA. However, the line CFOs from VHA, which is Ms. Duke, VBA, and NCA do not report to Mr. Richalski. Similarly, under Ms. Duke within VHA, while she is the CFO of VHA, the CFOs of divisions, the CFOs of the medical centers do not report up to her.
No fucking shit.
You know,
We knew
when
that.
I first started looking at, and this is before being elected to Congress, the VISN system, I wondered how it would, you know, work being VISNs having a lot of independent ability to do their business. At first, I was a little concerned that that may be a bad thing, but I would suggest to you that what I've seen over the last 6+ years is that a healthy VISN competition to see which VISN can do things better so that the other VISNs can advance the end product for the veteran. So I'm not proposing it at all, changing the VISN system. But I also believe that under the leadership of the VA, and I don't know if any secretary of the VA can do that, whether it was Secretary Wilkie, now Secretary McDonough, their biggest concern in knowing both of them is the veterans, but their also concern is they understand the lack of responsive nature of the bureaucracy. I'll just close by saying, stop trying to feed us a line up here. We're eventually
Oh
going to
yeah,
find out.
that'll really.
And it's not going to be
Yeah,
pretty.
good luck
That's
with
something
that.
It's going to
good.
be good for the veterans. Mr.
Our
Chairman, I
current
yield back.
Secretary of the VA
Thank you,
don't know
Mr.
jack
President.
diddly squat about the VA. He ain't
Representative
even a veteran.
Sisamani?
Okay, I'm telling you no. When he told them to stop, I was 100% convinced. Weren't you? Did you? I was.
He just meant it. I just know he meant it.
Yeah, I was quaking in my boots.
Right. And it's thing about the VISN competing against one another.
Okay, let's talk about a vision real quick.
Yeah.
Y'all know, okay, so in case y'all don't know this, so a vision network, let's give Houston, for example. Michael E. DeBakey is the second largest Veterans Affairs Administration hospital. So it's part of the hospital network. So the districts, like we're South Texas and we're parts of Louisiana, the vision network comes from here all the way to the edge of Florida. So they're the directors of multiple VA mega hospitals. And within those mega hospitals, there's clinics. So, of course, we know that Vasquez, our director, does not report to her. Hell no. Because if he did report to her his record, he was a part of the wait time scandal. Okay. He had a fake list on it. He actually red flagged a veteran falsely. Same thing they did to me, they did to somebody else so he could cover his ass. No paper trail whatsoever. Literally ruined this guy's life. Multiple reports on that. So, and here's the thing, the vision directors, they don't read their personnel files. They're freaking all the frauds from the OIG, the Government Accountability Office, the Justice Department magically doesn't make it into the personnel files. Oh my gosh. Like Dakota said yesterday.
Yeah, so
the VA works fine.
The VA works fine. It works exactly the way it's meant to work.
Yeah, for fraud.
Yeah.
And we can see that. But
money laundering fools.
Exactly. But don't you forget, guys, who said stop.
Yeah.
The most legal form of RICO out there.
And this bullshit about the VISNs competing against another. Why not let the VISNs compete against private hospitals?
Yeah.
And private hospital networks and
Slay.
really light a fire under their ass.
Slay. Completely.
Yeah,
slay.
Maybe.
I guarantee you, here's my theory. They compete against each other on how much fraud. how much
money they can launder. See how much money they can move from one room to the other without ever touching it.
Can we make these like fraud trophies and pass them out to the VISNs?
And we call them bozo buttons.
Bullshit award goes to.
I mean, hell, they give the prosthetics purchasing agent a open credit card. That's how the fraud happened in 2018 when the lady stole $150,000 and split it with her friend, because she'd just write down the purchasing order and write it on that credit card number, and then they'd pay out. And when that girl would get the money, she'd split it with her. They do 6,000 here, 3,000 there, and they just split it in half.
Okay, I think this hearing's bullshit award this time would go to Nakano for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Watching this hearing. But I'd like to give a shout out again to HTX Renegade Radio. They are based here in Houston. To his uncle, William Pate, U.S. Army in the 175th, shot up in the Battle of the Bulge, but was not killed in action. Total badass. Took one of those shots in the pancreas and battled diabetes from his hits. What a freaking badass. We like to give a shout out to Uncle Pete.
Uncle Pete.
Thank you for your service, sir. Kevin, here you go. It's so interwoven with corporations competing with each other. Would mean deep state. Absolutely. This is deep state. We actually uncovered a government accountability report about, again, we've already covered it, the Dubai and Johnson & Johnson. What the fuck is a VA doctor doing in Dubai?
I say
he's having dinner with Moderna or Pfizer.
He's having dinner with Moderna and trying to make a date with Pfizer.
That's a BJ right there.
Oh, there you go.
I say we let the VA compete with the outside civilian hospitals, and we watch the tumbleweeds roll through the VAs as
Well,
the
I will
veterans
say-
leave by the droves.
Here's I gotta play devil's advocate a bit. Civilian medicine ain't that much better, from what I hear. Now,
It's
honestly,
not. It's you're getting mostly nurse practitioners now,
right.
and that
But
bothers me because they're still practicing.
So here's what I figure, that if we do go to a privatized VA system, the government is always hungry for money. So I think it would sit there, allow the government to hold these hospitals accountable. However, would that put us in a tyrannical state of medical?
But
There's always two
Methodist,
sides to every coin.
It couldn't be any worse than what we've already got.
No.
Methodist was Michael E. DeBakey's baby as he was chancellor of Baylor and handed the VA in Houston after the Navy left from
Yeah.
there, because that was a
Navy hospital. Yeah.
Navy base.
Yeah, because the 1st Battalion, 23rd Marine Corps used to be right across the street.
But that Methodist hospital right across the street from it, where like Bush was waving at the VA, that was Michael E. DeBakey's baby. And then he was chancellor of Baylor up until his death. And then the military, after his World War II service, gave him Michael E. DeBakey when the Navy left.
Oh gosh, if you've ever looked up Michael E. DeBakey, total badass. But here's the thing. I will say this. I am a fan of one thing in the VA, and that is VA research. I mean, come on now. You got to give it to them. When they're sitting there working with cadavers and research, I mean, come on. It's awesome. But I will say this. I've had better service from a surgeon. And surgeons, they're just shoot straight to the point and everything, and there's no bullshit, than when I've had with any other type of doctor in the VA.
Or any other type of person, really.
I remember I had an x-ray tech sit there and put my leg in the machine. And here's the problem with what they did to her. She was pregnant, heavily pregnant, and she's working them x-rays. That's horrible. That's radiation. And so she put my leg in a machine. The machine was made for men, and so I couldn't get the proper measurement to turn. And then she took the x-ray, and then my surgeon came out and he heard it. He's like, this is horse shit. Busts right into the VA, sits there, pops my ankle on joints. Take the picture. Screaming my ass off, resets it. And he's like, okay, let's go get you some morphine. But we got it. I needed that image. I was like, well, I totally understand. But he got shit done. Totally loved the guy because he was no bullshit. I appreciated him being thorough and getting the job done right. And I'm walking here today because of it. So I will say again, there are great people within the Veterans Affairs Administration. And my team of surgeons were awesome. And then I moved here to Texas and it all went to shit.
Well, yeah, because now we have orthopedic surgeon Dr. Green.
Oh gosh, I can't stand Dr. Green.
Who likes to blind schedule patients behind their back and then wonders why they're not going to show up. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hand him his own hat on June 1st because I've got to go have my neurology infusions and I can't leave until they're over. And he decided that because it said nurse procedure, that it shouldn't take me more than 5 minutes and I should be able to go see him at 10. Well, ain't he going to have a heyday when I don't show up till 2?
Well, I would say the departments inside the clinics, they don't even communicate, they don't even communicate with pharmacy whatsoever. Nope. And you're sitting there, we waited 6 hours for our meds.
And I could have had my ankle fixed in Bryan College Station back in February, and I'm still waiting for podiatry to get off their butt.
I've been waiting 3 years for a GI appointment, but I don't want to keep it all complaining on the VA, guys. We've got some amazing investigations coming through for the VA. We will keep you posted. The American people, this is your tax dollars. Did you hear that? $187 million. Your tax dollars taken
unaccounted for.
Food from your children's mouth. And where's the news media on this? Oh, we heard it from Fox News. They had yesterday for Memorial Day, they had no interest in divulging the scandals that are happening within Veteran Affairs Administration. Why? Because we know the VA sucks and it's completely normal. And they're okay with that. Gosh. I'm beginning to get bitter over thank you for your service. It's not.
I would.
Thank you for my freedom.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and finish this up. My gosh.
Yeah, we got one more guy, it looks like, and then we got to hear from Takano again.
No, I don't want to hear that. I'm gonna get nauseated.
All right.
Let's go.
Throw it up.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rachelsky, the Department of Veteran Affairs has continually received record high annual appropriations. I sit on the Appropriations Committee. And in fact, House Republicans just published their Millicon VA appropriations bill, which not only meets the administration's request, but it provided an $18 billion increase from the previous year. Let me repeat that. It includes an $18 billion increase from fiscal year 2023 numbers, which shows Republicans' commitment to veterans, in spite of the misleading and irresponsible statements from Secretary McDonough, which impacted our veterans more than anyone. So I think we can all agree that our veterans deserve access to all the resources and benefits that they have earned. Now, in my community of Tucson, we are home to the Tucson VA Medical Center, and I consistently hear from my constituents about the high quality care they received, and I'm all for maintaining our medical centers well funded. Now, in light of the continual high levels of regular appropriations, could you please explain to me why the VA needs to spend the remaining supplemental funding set aside for COVID-19 related purposes when the COVID-19 public health emergency is now over, especially non-recurring maintenance projects that you're not able to execute by the end of the year?
I can, because it was never set aside for COVID. ARP was general purpose funds.
Oh, you liar.
You 23, it was part of the total funding package to provide care to veterans. You might as well just take the base funding. I mean, there's no difference. It's the same funding for this year.
No, it's not.
What amount are you looking at right now?
Pardon me?
What is the amount that we're talking about?
500 million left in ARP, but it's the same as base funding. And that's what we had.
No, it's
we
not.
communicated to Congress. They appropriated the funds, knowing that we had that money, that we were going to use that money for veterans this year. There was no difference between the two. It's not set aside for COVID.
You're telling me that that money was not set aside for COVID-related purposes?
It was not appropriated specifically for COVID. It was not set aside for COVID, and we made very
Liar.
clear, and Congress knew that, and they appropriated the funds this year.
And can you tell me where the misunderstanding comes from? Why is this the common notion and knowledge about these funds?
Well, it's in the appropriation law, sir.
Expand on that.
I'll send you the appropriation law. You can read that it does not say it's specifically for COVID. It's based on statute for healthcare.
Now, in the OIG report stated by Veterans Health Administration, quote, needed to establish a method of tracking and accounting for COVID-19 related costs.
And we're froze again. COVID-related cost. You know, he keeps sidestepping and two-stepping here and sidestep there and doing a yeehaw kick or something. I mean, it doesn't make any sense because it's insane. It's insane that the number of times he has sidestepped, dodged, ducked, limboed, all the stuff that they were supposed to do and didn't do. It's insane. But yet they haven't misappropriated all the funds. But they want an extra $18 million. Yeah, not buying it. I don't want my tax money to go to that. If it's going to help the veterans, great. If it's not going to help the veterans, sorry. No, ain't going to happen. And I don't know where Kimberly and Dakota went. They're still having technical difficulties, apparently. I can't see the comments, so if anybody's commenting, we'll have to wait for Kimberly and Dakota to come back to do any more acknowledgements.
There they are.
There they
Oh,
are.
good grief.
Good grief.
Holy cow.
I was
poof,
getting a
be
little
gone.
lonesome here. I mean,
Oh,
this
good.
guy's.
Poof, be gone. No.
All right, I do apologize, guys. We are having some network difficulties. So,
Well,
Fiber optics.
we wanted Mama Sally and Mr. Siscomani to get better acquainted, so.
Believe me, she don't need to get no more acquainted with him.
No, I mean,
I heard everything she had to say.
oh, good grief. So, we'll go ahead and since we paused that, what we covered here. Oh my gosh. So, Biden came out and told you what the money was for in the American Rescue Plan. The American Plan was for COVID. Further monies for COVID. Okay, here's the thing. COVID is over. So why are you wasting money with masks still? Because the thing is that we went to our congressman, Kim, I know you did too, about the masks inside of Veteran Affairs.
Yes.
Okay. We were the last in the country, America, to actually get masks removed for you. So my thing is, no one's thought to actually check on veterans. Veterans had to sit there and say, hey, the masks should be gone. Because
they make fabulous handkerchiefs.
Yeah.
The WHO said it's over. Let's move on.
I've got still some left over in case there's a toilet paper crisis. So,
oh, I can see that now.
Put them on eBay and make a fortune.
So anyway, should we be blaming Joe Biden then? I'm down with that too. I mean, if he sat there and told a lie to the American people that this COVID money wasn't for COVID, hell yeah, I'm down for that.
Well, with everything that's coming out about him and his family and all the misappropriated funds and all the offshore accounts that China's been funneling into them.
At that point, he should hope coming out is the only thing he has going on that's wrong.
Do you see how arrogant he is? Like, he's actually getting pissed at this point. He has been grilled for about an hour and a half because, let's face it, 30 minutes of this was just, the video of them getting ready for it. Mm-hmm. But this little ginger soulless bastard is sitting here getting freaking spicy as hell.
Yeah, but it ain't good. It ain't gonna do him no good when he's.
That's not ketchup. It's sriracha.
Oh my God!
Right. Let's go ahead and finish this up on it.
Yeah, go ahead and say that word, Kim.
And the agency developed multiple memos, alerts, and questions and answer documents, but none of these documents addressed oversight of transaction processing. Also in the report, it states that, quote, the OIG estimated that in 93% of the transactions, documentation of the medical facility staff's authority to make COVID-19 related purchases was missing. I understand you have your own audits, and I see that under Secretary of Health concurred with one of the recommendations in the OIG report to require medical facility staff have documented authority through proper delegation to make purchases. Can you explain how you will implement this and make sure all transactions are documented? And can we expect these recommendations to be implemented with the remaining American Rescue Plan funds?
Yeah, I think I'm going to refer to Ms. Duke. I think 8 of those recommendations were for VHA and for their implementation at the field.
Yes, and so what I would say is we are in the process of creating clarified guidance, not just for the ARP, but for all of our journal voucher transactions to ensure that the field is well aware of the expectations of clarifying the purpose. And then we are in conjunction with our Office of Integrity and Compliance, working on the oversight procedures that they will utilize to go out and ensure that those procedures are being followed throughout our enterprise.
She's lying through her
Chair, go
ass.
back. Thank you.
Earlier,
Mr.
she was
Connell,
damn near
you
quaking.
be
Did you
recognized.
hear her voice?
Here's the thing.
I can't give you a monetary amount, but I can tell you what them COVID funds were spent on: porta potties, hand sanitizer, and office supplies. And
They weren't
that's
spent
counting.
on. They weren't spent on porta potties. I promise you.
I know, because the women's, the porta potty outside, Michael E. DeBakey was also a women's clinic.
Yeah, there was
Right,
several
yes.
porta potties outside of ER at Michael E. DeBakey.
I
There was
promise
only-
you,
There was
they
only
haven't spent all that money on porta potties.
And hand sanitizer and office supplies.
Well, wait a minute.
Why
Half
did
of
they
the
need an
half
office
of the
supply? They weren't even in their office.
half of the hand sanitizer was out of stock, so we had to use drinking whiskey.
There were people donating, and I remember the pictures. There was so many people coming in to donate hand sanitizer, especially to hospitals and the Department of Veteran Affairs. Oh, they had enough.
Oh yeah.
But they were putting those little dots on us when we would go into the hospital with a date on it so that they could say that we had been screened and cleared to go into the hospital. And those little packs of stickers aren't free. And they were using them like all get out. So that was office supplies.
Not to mention the actual rented offices that they used that money on.
Yeah.
That they didn't use because they all worked from home.
So now we're going to sit there, have them go and make up receipts.
They're still working from home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wait, I'm starting to see it again because that Sharon Tony Finch had $38,000 she wanted them to give her, but couldn't produce a receipt.
She
I'm seeing the
forged a
same
receipt.
thing with the VA.
And how many charities are doing that? And on top of that, so they're getting money. These charities, again, they're getting money from the VA so they can outsource people, but then they never send the veteran over. That's fraud.
Yep.
That's fraud within the charities. Wounded Warrior.
I heard that.
Completely horrific. And here's the thing is that's what I can't stand about some of these charities. Guys, seriously research your charities. Okay, we saw it with the election. There's fraud there. Oh, there is a lot of fraud in these charities. That's what we saw with the whole Tony Finch thing up in New York. Caused a national incident, paying homeless people to impersonate veterans to sit there. Oh, we just got kicked out for illegals. Bullshit.
And she got stripped of her honorable woman mention from the Congress of New York.
Yeah, it was actually the Senate.
Yeah.
So look into your charities, see actually what monies goes there. Okay, did you know the CEO of Wounded Warrior, 385,000 plus a year? Tell me how much he loves veterans.
He loves them to hell and back.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
Sure he does. Thank you for your service, Wounded Warrior. Oh my gosh. This is absolutely disgusting.
Oh, I know.
Well,
I agree, and I love y'all, but I have got to run because I'm still on the clock and it's running down.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us for
Thank you.
Mama Sally, and taking your time off to spend time with us veterans. Love having you.
Hey,
Be safe.
I love my veterans, and I love y'all.
Thank you. Thank
Be
you.
safe.
God bless you, and God bless America.
Stay safe out there.
Remember,
With them 18 wheels rolling.
I will. And remember, sometimes you gotta say truck it.
Guys, you can watch her show Truck It on Tuesdays around 7 o'clock. It depends on her schedule. Make sure you tune in. Thank you, Mama Sally. Oh, I accidentally cut her off too soon. Fortunately, I had an incident where my child just sat on the dog.
Oh, Lord.
Was that what
So,
I heard in the background?
yes, that was hilarious.
That was America's Funniest Home Videos set to go.
It was because the dog was trying to get the popcorn and then kind of she still lost her balance and yeah, sat
She
on the
sat on
dog.
him.
I'm okay with that. It was hilarious.
Little four-legged Shetland pony.
Yep. So we're about to get back into it. Did y'all have anything to add with that bullshit? I don't have anything. It's just bullshit at this point. Let's go ahead and continue this and let's get the closing remarks going.
For closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that
Be careful, Dakota.
Representative Bergman raised the
I heard
issue
that.
of how
Takano. It's called
different,
seppuku.
leaders within the VA report to the CFO, and I just want to point out that our bill
It was Dookie Warner.
proposes a solution to the reporting issue by creating an undersecretary level position on management. I certainly am frustrated by
Oh, you sure are.
elements within the IG's report related to the transparency or the lack of transparency due to the continued intensive use on the manual nature of our transactions. I hope that VA, and I want to send a message that VA does need to implement the new financial management system faster than they've announced, and that's very important. But, Mr. Chairman, I also want to respond, I think, to
a new one's gonna
the
help.
charge that the VA has been politicized by so-called falsehoods and lies surrounding the Limit, Save, and Grow Act of 2023, which every Republican on this committee voted for, which is in reality the Default on America Act. During its passage, the majority created a nexus between raising the debt limit, which is about paying America's already incurred bills, and the appropriations process. They should be completely separate things. The debt limit should be the debt limit, and we should not question our ability or question whether or not we're going to pay those bills. And it should not be used as leverage to determine the spending priorities or policies of this Congress. That has always been negotiated. And there should be a compromise. Each side should be able to weigh into that process. But it should not be an all or nothing proposal or proposition that we get everything we want because we're going to threaten not to pay America's bills. That is just simply wrong. It's unreasonable and it is extreme. At the time of the passage, the majority laid out the principle of 22% cuts across the discretionary spending in our country. That amounts to about $142 billion. $142 billion is one estimate, what that means. So the majority is saying we're going to cut $142 billion. And at the time that the bill was moving through the House, nowhere in that bill, nowhere in the Default on America Act, was there any protection for VA spending. That, at the time, we provided the analysis, so VA helped us with the analysis. They had an analysis, we had analysis coming out of our appropriators, the Democratic appropriators, that would mean a $30 billion cut. And that is where we get the 30 million outpatient appointments that would disappear and be cut. At a time when we are trying to meet 3.5 million newly eligible veterans for health care in the PACT Act. 3.5 newly eligible. And the president said, we're not going to phase in these eligibilities. We're going to do it all at once. What was mentioned is that, well, let me just finish my train of thought here. Also at the time of the majority, they laid out at the time of passage of the bill, the majority laid out the principle of a 22% cut to discretionary spending, which amounts to about $142 billion, making no protections for VA spending, even as in order to get the votes to pass the bill, there was language written to the bill to protect ethanol subsidies. So ethanol subsidies were important enough to protect in language, but no language in this bill was written in to protect the VA budget, which is the second largest federal department.
But we know it was there to protect the VA.
Only after attention was called to the logic of the 22% cuts to the discretionary budget and the impact on VA's budget did Republican appropriators produce a Milcon VA mark to fund the TEF at $5.5 billion. And as was said, the overall VA budget was about $80 million more. But let us remember that the 3.5 million veterans, the VA says in order to be able to actually take care of the spending necessary to take care of toxic exposed veterans, that
We're
they
not
need
talking toxic
$15
exposure.
billion.
You already fucked that money away.
5.5 billion versus 15, that seems like a big hole in terms of underfunding the VA. So the majority now believes that the Milcon VA mark is a successful jujitsu move that proves that they have protected veterans from, from their share of the $142 billion cut. But what's not been laid out is how much is going to be cut from defense, or is defense going to be held harmless? There is, I think, a very difficult situation, as evidenced today by the fact that 4 subcommittees on appropriations have canceled their markups today. Because they can't figure out, well, if you're going to give VA this much money, how much is going to be allocated to labor HHS and transportation and also defense? So if defense and VA harmless, let's think about what those cuts are going to mean to these other categories of spending.
See, he's prepping us
And
for
mark my
budget
word,
cuts at
veterans
VA.
are going
It
to be
is the
harmed
Democrats.
if we cut Medicaid to the tune that the logic of their cuts would mean. Veterans are going to be hurt when HUD VASH vouchers aren't available so we can house homeless veterans. And by the way, all this
You take
talk
care of the
about
honorable discharges and focus on
unspent Inflation Reduction Act money or unspent.
How about we stop the bonuses for the employees and see how much we have to spend?
American Rescue Plan money, the $500 million of unspent American Rescue Plan money.
Yes, American
I want to
Rescue
just
Plan.
remind the committee again that there was never a link to the public health emergency and the American Rescue Plan funding.
How about we kept the
And
directors
indeed,
of the hospitals at
this notion that these two things be tied together is being reinforced by an extreme logic. And that extreme logic is being played out in the fact that this committee could not find the will in the majority to renew or extend authorities that reduced veteran homelessness by 11%.
I'm still dying to know what Mr. Vasquez is doing to earn that $200,000 a year. Are you there?
Hey guys, we're gonna come up on a different computer because the other computer is crashing. So.
Uh-oh, that's not good. I said, I'm still dying to know what Mr. Vasquez is doing to earn that $200,000 a year because I can't find it anywhere.
He didn't show up to work.
I say we give him $110,000 a year. We take everything else and we put it back into the budget. And he never gets a penny more, no raises, no nothing. If you can't make it on $110,000, go fly a kite off a short bridge.
But the thing is, it's not just like our VA. It's everyone, because here's the thing: if the division directors do not talk to the hospital directors, as we heard about, that's a major problem with the money. But I cannot believe the audacity of them saying, well, the COVID money was never intended for COVID.
Right.
Well,
And
what the
do you
hell
think-
was it intended for?
What do you think of Takano here? I mean, he's struggling to get through this. I'm pretty sure when he gets home, Senpai is going to have a few words.
What
to say.
what was it? What was it meant for? Was it meant for purging the little smelly things on the back of lemurs' nuts? I mean, if it wasn't intended for COVID, what was
On-hand
it
experience with
intended
that,
for?
Kim, by chance?
No, I just felt something really weird off that lemur that was in my lap the other day. And it wasn't his roll of quarters, okay?
I tell you what, I can't even.
But that was meant to make y'all laugh about it.
Yeah, but you can constantly see the backpedaling of the way that they are still actively, the Democrats are actively still trying to cut the budget. And they're doing it in a way of, well, we need to think about funding the DOD. Well, here's the thing. Why don't you get rid of these stupid, okay, look, we're up. We'll be back in a second.
We'll be back in a second.
What?
Here we are. So again, if you're looking at the DOD, why don't we get rid of the woke and the equity and inclusion? What about defunding that?
How about we get rid of sex changes and then we won't have to worry about it anymore? We
Oh
take
yeah,
all the
let's
money from
defund
and
that
put it
out of the
somewhere else.
VA. That's a big cut that could happen. I'm down.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm just not into the Jack and Jill thing. I
yeah,
do
I mean,
not
that
want
could be a
to
great
know.
campaign. Cut funding, not dicks.
I don't know. I don't want to know that I'm going to get women's treatment in the women's clinic where some dick has been sitting on the service table.
Yeah, I mean,
all alone.
Yeah, save the tatas used to be for breast cancer, but because of equity and inclusion, let's go ahead and make it an anti-trans thing.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, how about this? Abortion. Let's cut that. Okay. We wanted to have babies. That's it. I'm sorry, but if you served in the military and you're pregnant 10 years later, that's not the VA's problem.
No, it's not. How about we cut all the valet parking and we just open up the damn parking lot?
Yeah, how about that?
How about the veterans get their parking garage back, since Mr. Vasquez said, oh, it's for the vets, it's for the vets. Now it's for the employees. Give me my damn parking garage.
How about the Going Green initiatives of the solar panels that aren't even hooked up?
Because they pissed the people off and they didn't hook them up. They pissed the contractors off and they packed their stuff and left and never hooked them up.
Yeah, how about that?
But that was all Rick Perry's bright idea. But yet the government can't sell electricity back to the grid if it has a surplus, because that surplus can't be sold back by the government.
So what was the point?
The point was Mr. Rick Perry got put in charge of the Department of Energy, which he wanted to cut, and he couldn't remember that was the department that he wanted to cut when he was up there debating, and they put him in charge of it, and this was his bright idea.
So I'm just to let you people, everyone watching know. So if you are a service-connected veteran of 10% and you actually have insurance, did you know that you can take your insurance card and they will bill your insurance to cover your pay? So that's another way that the VA gets money. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, they shut down the VA. They saw civilians. How much money did they make, and how much money? And because we obviously didn't get care. We were all told to stay home, and when we called in for COVID.
How about the veteran canteen service that's at every single Veterans Affairs? Basically a convenience store that's located inside major veteran hospitals that is inventory, snacks, t-shirts, veteran memorabilia that's paid for with your tax dollars and sold by the VA for their profit.
What about
how about our DFAC inside the VA that has been through 3 complete shutdowns that lasted for 10 months each, where they had to bring in outside food because they couldn't pass a DOJ health inspection.
Did you see the roaches in their food at Michael E. DeBakey?
I've seen the roaches up on 5C.
No, it was actually a report that they were feeding. There was feces. There was roaches in the food at Michael E. DeBakey.
Yes.
And you know what? It was just oops.
And they had to shut it down, pull all the appliances out, clean it up, take those appliances out of the hospital and replace them with new appliances. That's why the pizza shop isn't open anymore and won't ever be open again.
Ridiculous. Total waste of money, total fraud.
Plus, why do you need a credit union inside of the hospital?
Money laundering.
That's where they're laundering the money. Check the VA account.
Yeah, I have seen roaches in the cafeteria and their Starbucks.
I've seen roaches in the surgical unit.
I am not surprised that Starbucks is in the VA.
Yeah, the VA has to pay Starbucks to use their brand.
That's not Starbucks. That's that canteen coffee, and they put 3 packs in 1 filter, and they call it Starbucks.
Yeah, they still have the Starbucks logo there,
you
right?
think Starbucks doesn't get kickbacks for that?
Yeah, they just have the brand. They pay them for the brand, and then they pay for the cheap shit coffee.
They use the canteen coffee and put 3 packs in a filter.
And it's called diabetes. Let's finish this up, you guys.
Woo.
Go on, toss it up there.
Yeah, here we go.
Percent. And why? Because it's got to fit into this ideology that all this unspent money is going to be clawed back and is part of this limit, save, grow logic. Meanwhile, who is paying the price for that? Who's paying the price for that are the homeless veterans that we can still take off the streets.
They're not working.
Who's paying the price for that is our Americans all across the country who don't want to see veterans homeless. And we're talking about $6 million that we could have together worked on to find a solution for. So, look, the Milcon VA mark is not a settled matter. It's not as if that is the truth, because we have no visibility into what the other 11 subcommittees and appropriations have got to do in order to meet this $142 billion cut. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, the ranking member. So let me.
Okay.
I say we cut out all the employee bonuses. We cut everybody back to $100,000 a year in salary. We make them pay back the COVID money. We take them back to 2019's budget, and they don't get a penny more.
Well, I will say this is that when you sit there and create an agency like that, also with the amount of education that some people have, that's a bit unfair. I wouldn't necessarily do that. What it is you have to create a system of accountability. Okay. There needs to be a reward system. There needs to be a punishment system. Okay. We've already seen with the Veterans Affairs so far. Well, I've known it for years, and many Americans have, is that there is no accountability. No one can get fired. No one can get punished. And that is a hard environment. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that there are only buddy bonuses based on cover-ups.
And stop hiring your neighbor's daughter's daughter for a job that should have some kind of educational background.
What it is too is there's a lot of equity hires going on. That's it.
And then there's the Second Chance Act that happens, so felons are getting hired.
We saw that with pharmacists.
Don't we deserve better than to be treated by felons?
Yeah, and it's in the VA's logo, giving the best to veterans.
Let's make them pay $1,000 every time they say they're giving us excellent service.
Right. Well,
and
I'm going
put
to
it in the
introduce.
kiddie fund.
Well, I want to talk about hard facts that is very uncomfortable facts for the American people. So, I'm sorry to say that. Do homeless veterans deserve it? Well, not all homeless veterans are honorably discharged.
A very small amount actually are, I
Yeah.
would say.
So, most of the people that end up homeless do not complete their time in service. I'm sorry to say that. But I do not want to house a rapist. I do not want to house a pedophile. I do not want to sit there and house some of these criminals that happen to serve.
I don't want to house a meth head or a crackhead.
Right. Some of these, here's the thing, guys, there's bad people in everything. Just because we have veteran behind our name doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's good. The military does a good job of vetting people, but the military does not change your character. It just adds something to it. And that's a thing that a lot of Americans do not know. So if you were a bad person and you went to the military, it could go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It could go downhill fast or it could change you. Okay. But it's up to the individual discipline. So when you look at a homeless veteran, look and actually study before you give. Now, granted, there are just a minute few in there that shit just happened. But some of this is just poor life choices. And I'll be honest with you. If you're a Vietnam vet and you didn't get your shit together by now, you are never going to get your shit together. That's a reflection of character. I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off when I say that, but that's the hard truth.
And don't trust it just because the vet the person standing on the street corner with the sign that says homeless vet need help. Because they're not necessarily a vet. They're claiming to be a vet trying to tug at your heartstrings.
Yep. Literally look up the statistics on homeless veterans. And some of these are studies that are not done by the VA. There's some of them that are actually done by charities. And a lot of charities, if you talk to them, it's 50-50.
Well, I've actually sat and looked at a sign that a person had on the side of the road. And it said, homeless, need help, anything counts, gone to McDonald's, bought burgers, turned around, made the loop and brought them back, and they throw them on the floor on the ground to the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't want that. They wanted the cash.
Yeah.
I saw my most honest sign I've ever seen from a homeless person. And it was down in Galveston on 61st Street. Long time ago. I'm sure that man's been dead by now for quite a while. Said, homeless, why lie? Need a beer, don't need milk.
Yeah.
And people give him a can of beer, he'd take it, go to the gas station, sit, drink it, come back, get his sign, and wait for another one.
Yeah. So I'm not saying, I believe, I'm a Christian. I do believe in giving and everything, but it's like, I would say find a very good organization that actually helps veterans. There's Camp Hope here. They're pretty good. Oh, Mighty Oaks is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
They're fantastic in that. Put your money where it matters and
Zach
actually
and
getting
them.
people off the street.
Don't forget Zach and them.
Yeah, that's Hero, and they're up in Louisiana, and they're just launching. Really, really good guys. If you want information, if you're out in Louisiana for homeless veterans, please let us know. But because we do have a broad range of where to go on that. But anyways, let's go ahead with Mike Bost, his closing statement.
Mike Bost's closing
This is going to be interesting.
One, the situation as far as when the floor debated the Save Grow Act, we already had in record a letter from the appropriators, the chairwoman of the appropriation, that VA would not be cut. So to say that you didn't know at that time, then apparently either staff or someone didn't pay attention, because then also I spoke on the floor as the chairman of this committee saying it would not be cut. Now, to say that that VA has not been used as a political tool, you need to talk to all the veterans who were scared to death by the piece of paper they put out saying what a 22% cut would do, even though we knew that there wasn't going to be a 22%.
Hello.
So you've been used as a political tool, whether you want to admit that or not. We are in support of trying to take care of our homeless veterans. We are in support of PACT Act. We are in support of those things. And the budget that came out yesterday proves that. Now, in response to why there are not budget meetings going on now, it's because there's a negotiation between the President of this United States and the Speaker of the House of this United States. Because when we come together to work on a budget, we need a bottom line. We do not have a bottom line, and that's the normal process. When the three get together, the Senate, the House, and the President, this is the process. Just act like that process is not part of it, and that's why they're not meeting right now, is because until we get that bottom line, we don't know where we're negotiating from. You are right in the fact that the debt limit is a separate thing, but the thing is, and I think it explains best whenever we say that a debt limit is similar to whenever you've sent your child off to college and they've maxed out the credit card. And when they maxed out the credit card, you got two choices. One, you got to pay it. That's not an option. You got to pay it. Or you just look at your child and go, hey, just keep spending like that. It'll be fine. Or you can finally get somebody to the table with your child and go, hey, you're going to stop this spending. So that's what we're in the middle of negotiating and doing. But I've got another concern with the VA, and I'm not even going to ask for an answer, but I'm going to tell you how this sounds. When you explain that you don't think that the COVID money was specifically directed towards COVID and you could spend it anywhere you want. Well, let me tell you the problem that exists with that. If you can remember, the first COVID bill was $60 million. And that was the response, quick response. And then we came back with the CARES Act, and that was 19.6. Now let's put some in perspective what exactly happened before this committee in November of 2020. In November of 2020, we had lost the majority of the Republican side, and the president was switching over to President Biden. We asked in November or early December, the VA to come before this committee. They did. And we said, how much money of the CARES Act is still available, and are you okay? And the answer was $10 billion. Yes, we're fine. We don't need any more. We don't need any more. That's exactly what we said. It was said before this committee. Then we come forward. We did not need the extra $17 billion, but by golly, we pumped $17 billion more into a program that didn't have the controls that were necessary and should have had controls that was necessary. And now you tell us, no, we can really spend that any way we want. Well, let me tell you, this bothered me when you said that, because the chairman or the secretary came before us a few months ago, and we asked, both myself and the ranking member asked, why in the world would you use the TIF money for construction? And the answer was, because you gave us the authority to.
No, we didn't.
People, you need to understand, we've got to be responsible. Both sides of the aisle. And just to come in, this is why people are so frustrated with bureaucracy. Because you can't see the common sense of saving.
You're stupid.
And being sensible. And a lot of those things that you're talking about providing for don't provide squat for the veterans. They provide a lot for the agency, but they don't provide squat for the veteran. And have you come before us and then all of a sudden ask, oh, we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. No, you've got to be accountable. And our job is to make you accountable. Now, I appreciate the opportunity for you guys to come in here today, but I'm going to tell you this. This is all demonstrated that we should continue to closely examine everything you do. We need to make sure that the money is being spent wisely. And you can say it's a paperwork error, you can say whatever, but that's why we have oversight. And the taxpayers require us to do that. We, and I'm no offense to the sailors, but the last 3 years during COVID, we've spent money like drunken sailors. And the oversight has not occurred.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment, bro.
And it is going to occur.
To the
And we
phone.
need to make sure that that oversight is there, and we're going to continue to do that. With that, I want to thank everyone for being here. And we will continue with these hearings, and we will find out.
Did they give you the $2.2 million receipt for that stupid parking garage?
So I think we're actually going to learn, so I have FOIA'd the VA multiple times. They do not respond. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and go into some litigation on a lot of this stuff. But now from watching these hearings, I know what to do. So
well, that's okay.
I love it. COVID was not for COVID, is what the VA is saying. So basically, you just told us you're stupid. How the fuck are you at your position? You just told the American people you're fucking stupid as shit.
And you've been there for 6 years.
And you've been there for 6 freaking years. And some of that panel even more. And you can't do your job. Get fired. Quit your position right now. You obviously said you're too stupid. And you know what? No news agency's covering this, guys. No veteran agency's covering this either, because they don't talk politics. Because they want their safe spaces. This is abuse. This is abuse.
Well, they have till Wednesday at 1:42 p.m. to respond to me about my complaint against Mr. Vasquez.
Yeah, sorry, we have
1:42 in the afternoon is the time that the White House gave them.
You know they're not going to respond. They're going to say, well, it's the holiday weekend. I need more time. And then they're going to say, well, we need to get someone trained on that.
Oh, no. What they told me was that they were going to get Mr. Vasquez in on it. And I said, wouldn't that be a conflict of interest?
So basically, they're not going to answer the question, because we've put in several things with Congress, even with our senators, and they never answer the question. And that's...
If the complaint's about Mr. Vasquez, isn't that a conflict of interest if Mr. Vasquez is getting in on it?
Probably. I want to address what Kevin says here. They want to keep that money that's left over because they want to inflate the budget. We all know in the military, spend all you can to keep the budget. So I'll give y'all guys an example in case y'all didn't know that. Okay. There are sometimes in the military, I know at our command, we needed to maintain that budget. So what they would do is buy us all boots, fraud-free boots, when we got there, or give us extra pairs so we could keep the budget, because sometimes we actually needed that budget for multi-million-dollar parts. So if you actually go under budget,
then they cut your budget.
You would lose it that next year. And then if something went wrong, like an aircraft went down, oops, it's not in the budget. So,
but that COVID budget wasn't there before, so they need to go back to where they were before the COVID budget, because that was an exception to the rule.
Please give me Marsha Blackburn's contact info. Lorna, you can actually put in your search in contact Marsha Blackburn's or Marsha Blackburn's phone number, and it'll come up right then and there. Well, guys, that comes to the end of our podcast. We'd like to thank our viewers, Lorna, Kevin, Paul, everyone that was here, Ruth, even HTX Renegade Radio, for joining in and watching us tonight. Hold on. Kevin's got something. The man attitude is the same attitude that we found at the VAs. B, higher C veterans should demand he be fired. Absolutely. Absolutely. But here's the thing. I'm not holding my breath until they are fired. I'll be honest with you. Well, guys, thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that you have a great Memorial Day. Those that your family members that you're missing, and that we appreciate all their service and their sacrifice, and we're thinking of you tomorrow. So y'all take care and God bless.
Take care.
Good night, y'all.